It's the Masters Tour in Las Vegas, and we are getting into round number 4 here as we have 7 rounds of Swiss in play today. I'm Matt Saberville, and I'm joined by Derek Brown. And Derek, we've had some pretty strong matches today, and we have a humdinger of a match that's coming up. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I honestly think that this match is between the players that I would put at number 1 and number 2 right now. Even if we go off purely their HCT record from last year, we have in this match hunterace, our reigning world champion, and up against justsaiyan, who had a streak of 2 months where he actually just seemed invincible. Like he literally couldn't lose a game of Hearthstone, and they're both back here in the Masters Tour in Las Vegas, 3-0 undefeated so far.
Very crucial round is this is the first round where players can be ineligible for day number 2 at the 4-loss record. You are no longer in the day 2 cut. Taking a look at hunterace's deck, it's pretty much the tried and true for him. It seems like even in Grandmaster's time, he's brought this a lot. Now here at this big open tournament, he's given it once again. He says, good old Cyclone Mage.
Yeah, we're seeing this from a cabal of the best Hearthstone players here. As you can see from justsaiyan, his opponent, they were practicing together, or at the very least talking some kind of strategy, as I believe they have pretty much a 30 for 30, at least in their primary deck, exact mirror match from these two players. It's an interesting comparison, as I don't believe justsaiyan and hunterace are often practice partners. I think hunterace tends to play more with ball control, orange, Pheno, that lot, whereas Saiyan sticks more with the American players.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a pretty interesting one. You know, the dead giveaway for me is the tertiary deck.
Yeah.
You know, if both these players just happen to land on those 5 cards in a pretty undecided list, I would say.
Yeah.
Pretty spectacular. You're getting to look at the two of them and kind of chat with each other. They're ready to get in a match, but we're also getting ready for them to get in a match so that we can bring you game number 1 of this one, because I'm stoked about it. Which means headsets on. Let's battle.
Let's go. As I'm actually personally invested in this match even more, as last night I went out for dinner with hunterace and justsaiyan after we were at the pool party here hosted for Las Vegas, the Masters Tour, and it was pretty interesting hearing them talk about the strategy, because they felt less decided on their decks than you would expect from 2 such strong players the night before the tournament was to be played. justsaiyan was talking about the potential power of Holy Wrath Paladin. Does he go with that to try and go for a slightly more out there decision? hunterace was singing the praises of Mage in particular, and it's interesting. They both ended up on pretty much the exact same Mage deck list.
Well, hunterace might have just talked him out of Holy Wrath Paladin.
Very possible.
Ended up being a pretty big liability, I think, in terms of deck choice, given how many warriors are in the field. You know, just the fact that that deck puts so much pressure on you in terms of bombs, but also just in terms of your clock. You have to be able to deliver, you know, oftentimes in excess of 50 damage with that deck, and you don't always have the liberty to do that. So kicking it off, Saiyan opens with Coin, Arcane Intellect, Giant. Name a more iconic duo.
How about Conjurer's Calling?
Ooh. That's a good iconic duo, because it's also Conjurer's Calling that goes with it, so it's just 2 of them as a pair, like twins, like Hoy and Nikolai Hoy. I believe they're facing off this round, actually.
I believe they are facing up against each other. I've cast them playing together in the Hearthstone global games when they were both on Team Denmark, I believe. I'm not certain I've ever casted them against each other.
First time for everything.
As it's got to be said in this first game, you always want to be on the coin in these mage mirrors, and you always want to have a hand like this, as justsaiyan as well, even with the elemental evocation, which just looks like a absolutely prime way to boost out that giant.
I'm worried for hunterace already in this game.
So am I.
It's quite rare, I think, that I'm just outright worried for a player this early on, but my goodness, how is he going to beat this hand?
I think if anyone is the player to do it, it's hunterace. He has just been playing some beautiful Mage in Grandmasters. Yeah. I've really liked what I've seen from him, because I think it's not only been strong play, it's been progressive play from him. I think he brought the play style of Mage forward leaps and bounds.
Just being able to be flexible.
Exactly. Just going with a different game plan, often with the Mana Cyclone and Conjurer's Calling, and the Sorcerer's Apprentice as well early on. Just really opens up your possibilities if you're not locked into the Mountain Giant early on.
Something I'm kind of looking at for hunterace is the Spellbender, the Twilight Drake, and then Ray of Frost. You know, with card draw, obviously the Mountain Giant would be something he's eyeing here, but I feel like if he's going to win this game, it has to be some way of freezing to buy time to find the right answers.
And this is very annoying for justsaiyan, it has to be said. The secret being played on this turn for hunterace, I find somewhat interesting. I think it makes sense because he really wants to play Twilight Drake next turn, but ideally you want to play the Secret going into the turn your opponent will be playing Mountain Giant, so that they are afraid to do so in case it's a mirror entity.
Man, does he have that Liberty, though?
That's the thing. I think in this instance, he kind of has to curve into Twilight Drake, so the mana had to be spent on turn 3.
It's not an impressive Twilight Drake, but Twilight Drake nonetheless. One better than Yeti. Seen plenty.
With those words?
Yeah, one better than Yeti.
Yeah, I know.
The health-wise.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're words. Words don't have to make sense for them to be words. Why use more word when fewer word do trick?
SeaWorld.
Not the intended use of Spellbender. You want that to catch a Conjurer's Calling, but with Bananas and a Ray of Frost there, that's just not happening.
Yeah, like we said, pretty much just had to throw it down. An unopportune opportunity.
Goodness, and the Banana Buffoon here is so awkward too, where if that Twilight Drake had one more health, Bananas and Twilight Drake could crash into the Mountain Giant and still be alive.
It's crazy how these discrete breakpoints make all the difference in the world in this matchup. Like, for example, the Giants trading into Grave Horrors and then being resummoned with Conjurer's Calling. It's tiny, tiny differences that change the game completely.
That's right. You said it perfectly. The worst feeling in the world.
That is actually the worst feeling in the world. But when you do it,
and you had a problem with your arm and on vacation.
I'd break 1,000 arms. Yeah. Or all 2 of them. Yeah. Before I was hit with a Conjurer's Calling on my value-traded Grave Horror.
I guess, to be fair, you didn't specify whose arms.
Okay, well, before I'm arrested, I would not break 1,000 other people's arms to avoid being hit with Grave Horror value trade.
Grave Horror's been working out.
Oh, man, this turn from Saiyan as well. Such powerful things are being done here, and hunterace is going to have to do something very, very impressive if he wants to have any chance of pulling this back.
Yeah, impressive piece number 1 is selecting which card you want to draw right now. That's not it. So now that the Mana Cyclone is out the window for this turn, how does he get there? And honestly, I'm just looking at Frost Nova, and you just hope it works.
Yep.
You have to draw Mana Cyclone next turn to win, I think.
But he's even one off from being able to go Evocation Giant Frost Nova on this turn, which would open up some kind of a possibility, because then he could go Banana, value trade, maybe he gets a Conjurer's Calling off the top.
So much of it boils down to playing the Secret again as well. Like,
yeah.
I think he is supposed to play the Secret. Conjurer's Calling, if that's the lone spell your opponent's going to play, and they're going to try to play as quickly as possible,
right,
it's going to work. You have to have Saiyan not draw Banana Buffoon. That's okay. That's going to happen sometimes. There is 2 in the deck. But with hunterace, the opening hand he had, with Saiyan coining Arcane Intellect, I think hunterace knows exactly what type of hand Saiyan has. Why wouldn't he have coined the Banana Buffoon if he had it?
Right, yeah.
So I like his sequencing in this game. It's just, it's not working this time. And now he has to figure out what's going to be inside that box and hope that he draws the box to begin with.
That's an interesting point. Would Saiyan have coined Banana Buffoon over AI every time?
I would assume so.
I think pretty much every time you'd coin it out.
You want to contest your opponent's Banana Buffoon. You want to contest if they top deck a Sorcerer's Apprentice for something strong.
I think you're right.
You also just get 2 damage out of it. You also threaten an early Conjurer's Calling in your own right. So it's tough to say exactly, but he just didn't have Banana Buffoon at that point.
Yeah. Because maybe, like you said, because it was coin AI, that convinced hunterace to play the Spellbender because he thought he could trick his opponent into thinking there was still the mirror entity. Blah, 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 blah. A lot of different decision-making that could have happened throughout this game. The news story right now, though, is that Saiyan is pummeling hunterace in this game.
So I do like the play here from hunterace, though, where he doesn't Frost Nova. This actually opens him to being able to sometimes draw Conjurer's Calling as well.
This is the out.
Saiyan has so little reach. How is he actually going to kill you, even if he gets in a shot for 16 here?
Yeah.
Very wise.
If he goes for Giant Freeze on this turn, or, with Ray of Frost instead. This is fine. This is probably better, actually, because Ray of Frost Nova gets better as time goes on.
Yeah. This is a very well thought out turn from hunterace.
If he can get AI off the top and then hit Khadgar's plus Conjurer's Calling, hunterace is not out of this game.
He really is not, which honestly, it really boiled down to that turn 6 where he chose to just tank the damage to face instead of trying to freeze the board.
Yes.
He tanks the damage. The next turn he gets a freeze setup, and then suddenly you're looking at multiple draws here that heavily impact the game.
I think that was Very, very wise couple of turns from hunterace. Because again, like if he just played out Giant on turn 6, the game ends on the spot.
Dunzo, yeah. Plays the Frost Nova on turn 6.
Pretty much done as well. Yeah.
This looks dire, and it is.
It's bad, but hunterace was expecting this. He knew that some kind of stats would be put onto the board on this turn. He has the quote-unquote answer for it with Frost Nova.
Is it possible?
What are you looking at?
Well, he could draw Mana Cyclone here.
Yeah, okay.
I just explained before we went to break, Casey had explained to me the turn that he countered, that he faced down, which was his opponent Frost Nova, cast 3 Ray of Frosts, and then Evocation, Mana Cyclone. The 3 Ray of Frosted minions that Casey had all got snap frozen that turn.
No way.
3 snap freezes and 4 generated spells. Bunny Hopper and I calculated it. I believe that exact occurrence was about 1 in 32,000 something.
Wow. So you're saying there's a chance?
There very much is.
I mean, he just needs to generate as many freezes as he possibly can at this point. Conjurer's Calling is not bad either.
I mean, this is it. This is what all of that thought and that work was for, was this particular outcome. Arcane Intellect.
Yeah, okay.
Could draw more
Frostbolt's
freezes.
a good card too. Maybe he can survive a turn like this. After... he's not even going to be able to value trade Saiyan. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that might wrap this one up. Because now hunterace also has to take care of the Archmage Antonidas. And that's tough.
Yeah, which he cannot do at the moment. Frostbolt into... Like, if he had a Sorcerer's Apprentice he could throw down, then, you know, we're starting to talk, because we could see Arcane Intellect to draw 2 cards.
Astro Rift for it then.
But of course.
This card, I feel like, always gives Mage a chance. And sometimes I feel like it just never gives Mage a chance.
I honestly kind of forgot that Doubling Imp was in Standard, I've got to be honest.
I forgot Warlock was in Standard.
Fair enough. As there we go. The Apprentice to cheat out a reasonable amount of mana on this turn.
He was so close. He was just...
Yeah.
Too good of a hand from Saiyan.
That was pretty disgusting. I mean, I am personally a very big fan of the Mage Mirrors. I think especially with the modern builds that have a little bit more anti-mage tech thrown in, they can be very, very interesting indeed. In that instance, I think hunterace did everything he possibly could to give himself an out into coming back into that game. Saiyan just gave him no chance at all, though. He had the good hand, he played it well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you see the blowouts in the Mage Mirror, that's the reason the deck is powerful, is it has blowout draw potential.
Yes.
You want to talk about really solid play in that one, though. I think that Saiyan did not have as much room to demonstrate as hunterace did. You know, Saiyan's hand was pretty straightforward. It was very powerful. He did his thing. He did his powerful thing. He coined out the AI. The coin the AI, I think, is really the trick to learn with this deck when you have that strong of an opening hand. For hunterace, though, the demonstration of patience and excellence in understanding how he loses the game absolutely opened him to the best possible chance to win by finding Mana Cyclone, getting a lucky outcome, and then being able to turn the game around. I think me in that position, I would have died on turn 6 when I cast the Frost Nova.
And I think that is actually specifically for hunterace his greatest asset as a player, because all the things that good players have to have, he obviously has down, like knowing the meta, being a good technical player. But I think his strongest asset is consistent ability to read a game state and know exactly what he has to move towards in order to take a game. Often this can kind of be a detriment, because we were talking about this. We think he overloads himself with information at some points that he can't compute through in a turn.
Literally too smart for his own good sometimes.
Exactly. He thinks about too much stuff and can't work through all of that before the rope starts burning down. But generally speaking with hunterace, the thing that makes him such an incredible player, the Hearthstone current world champion, is his ability to know exactly what he has to move towards in every game and execute it very well.
Yeah, just don't play Evil Miscreant and you don't have to think about all those things. It's like calculating every single minion possibility with Witchy Lackey.
Yeah.
What can I get from this Henge Clan Burglar that really changes my turn? Should I not play it first?
Yeah.
Do I need to see this other random outcome before I see the random card? Do I need to see the random card first? There's a lot of weird sequencing things that, when you really account for all the variables, they do matter.
Yes.
But the thing about it is the speed at which you play a turn and can just make generically good decisions matters a lot as well. And when I say literally too smart for his own good, I somewhat mean that facetiously, but at the same time, I don't.
Yeah.
Like, that to me has been the biggest point he struggles, is with very wide range of variables in unknown outcomes. from stuff like Mana Cyclone. Both players are sticking to their primary deck, by the way.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just, that's the way it's built. It's good in game 1.
Yeah, exactly. We've got, for both players, their secondary deck is anti-warrior, their tertiary deck is anti-rogue, so the primary deck is the best they've got in the mirror.
I talked with a number of players about this yesterday at the gathering that we had at the pool as well, and so many of them were talking about, well, I'm not sure which deck I want to bring because I'm not sure what portion of the meta game that I want to even try to counter if I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to name names, but I talked with 3 players specifically, and the exact conversation that happened was, what do you expect to show up the most? Well, I expect Warrior to show up the most. Okay, what do you expect to counter Warrior? I expect Mage to counter Warrior. Great, so what deck do you bring to counter those 2? And I got 3 different answers.
Really? I've heard from a few people as well that they expected that, and therefore they brought the Hunter as the mid-range Hunter as the kind of best in between, because we know it's one of the weaknesses of Mage, I think it's fair to say, and also can do well against Warrior. A lot of those players are not doing well. Yeah, it's got to be said. Hunter is not doing well.
A lot of those players queued into Rogue.
Right.
Yeah. Rogue was another big contender here. I'd say that one of the reasons why it wasn't as brought as it was is so many players last night discussing that if everyone thinks they're going to bring Rogue, then it's like week 1 of Grandmasters. You bring Warrior to beat it.
As we're getting into the second game, already we have an actually incredibly crucial interaction between Saiyan and hunterace, with the Apprentice coming down on 2 for Saiyan. If hunterace had not had exactly... Oh, no, sorry. He had 2 cards that could have dealt with this. The Frostbolt that he's teched in, or the Ray of Frost that he has here. Banana Buffoon would have come down, and Saiyan could have just been running away with the game at that point.
Yeah, that's the one benefit you have on the play, is that your situation changes from having Mountain Giant draws into having the aggressive option draw.
Yes.
So being able to Banana Buffoon twice onto a Sorcerer's Apprentice is a major deal. But hunterace has now checked both the early threats from Saiyan, but that has greatly reduced the amount of time that hunterace takes to play Mountain Giant.
This is expensive for hunterace. Using the Coin, the Frostbolt, and the Ray of Frost, all of these cards are really good in the mirror. And now he has to float a mana playing AI. I guess he can fit in a magic trick, but when you're going second and you have Arcane Intellect, you want to play Giant on 4. That's generally your game plan.
Yeah, so to me, is that shifted to 6 now with the Conjurer's Calling being found?
I think that's very possible. There are no snap freezes in Saiyan's deck list, no big game hunters obviously either. So the ability for a Giant to stick on the board is a reasonable expectation, I think, so we may therefore see it on turn 5 instead. But depending on the mana cost, he might even be able to do it next turn with the Elemental Evocation.
Next turn is his 5. I believe it's at 6 cost right now. It costs 12 mana normally, and -1 for each of the card.
So I guess turn 6 is where we're looking at.
I don't know. He could just play it next turn. I mean,
it's fair.
You made an excellent point. There's no snap freeze. There's not a lot of trickiness going on in Saiyan's deck. It's like multiple Ray of Frost with Frostbolt, or Banana Buffoon and loaded up with cheap spells like maybe Sorcerer's Apprentice come down alongside of it. But the worry is fairly little, and Saiyan actually added nothing to board this turn. So I think that's really hunterace's question now. Do you want to load the Giant first, or perhaps do you draw Sorcerer's Apprentice and have to rethink your entire life?
Oh, it gets more and more interesting now, because he's just a tiny bit of mana off from doing something absurdly powerful.
Yes, just the most complicated draw in the deck this turn. Why not? Yeah, sometimes you just keep it simple.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably right, but I'm looking at, like, next turn he wants to go Banana Buffoon, Banana, Value Trade, and Conjurer's Calling if Saiyan plays the Giant. Obviously, that's 1 mana off being possible, but man, that would have been strong.
The mirror image to back it up.
Okay, that prevents any kind of nonsense anyway.
However, I think hunterace, with the first Giant here, might end up an advantage. Now, the caveat to that is the first player who uses Frost Nova typically at a disadvantage.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if Saiyan uses it and hunterace does not have any Frost Novas, he may just be able to smoke him down before hunterace is able to respond in a big way.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried for hunterace here.
I think that's unlikely, though.
Really? Because he really wants to freeze the Giant here so that he can never get value traded. Like, he has to respect what Banana Buffoon can actually do to these spots. And if he uses Conjurer's Calling now, he's opening himself to potential 7/8s on board. So I think hunterace, even though his turn is very powerful, I think he has his work cut out for him in terms of dotting his I's and crossing his T's.
I think you're right. I think I was letting caster vision get to me a little bit too much there, because obviously we can see Saiyan has no Conjurer's Calling. He cannot value trade and then Conjurer's Calling. Hunterace does not know that.
You got to respect the Conjurer's Calling.
Exactly. It's very much something to be that could blow you out of this game, which is the thing that's stopping Hunterace from just instantly snapping the double Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah.
But in the end, after a good turn of thinking about it, he comes to the conclusion, you know what? I'm just going to play it all.
And I still here have some fear for hunterace, because if it's Khadgar Conjurer's Calling,
yeah.
Oh, that's a... Oh, my gosh.
But this play from Hunterace was perfect. By throwing in the Shooting Star as well, there is no value trade available.
That's true, but it's just the game is building that critical point. Like,
it really is.
I want to highlight the Frost Novas as well, because the first player to use it, I think in this situation, is at a disadvantage. Saiyan really wants to banana value trade and Conjurer's Calling, but that's going to leave his nose open on the counter swing. It's just whether or not hunterace can capitalize.
Would he be able to play Mountain Giant, the Sea Giant as well? Sorry, I don't think he would.
Can't Sea Giant and play Mana Cyclone with a bunch of spells.
Well, I'm looking at Conjurer's Calling, like banana value trade, Conjurer's Calling, Sea Giant, but I don't think that's quite possible.
So if you banana value trade, Sea Giant goes to 3 mana, you Conjurer's Calling, it goes to 2 mana.
Yeah.
What to do?
I think you have to go for Conjurer's Calling here in Saiyan spot, and again, kind of thinking to that Frost Nova, you know that if you use it first, it's bad for you. So there's a chance that he waits here and goes, I'm just not going to win it if I have to make this play. But I think that's quite rare that he thinks that. And so we got a good old-fashioned board rumble.
Oh man, and even here from Saiyan, like this play raises alarm bells, because this opens up a pretty clear value trade on Hunterace's side. He has seen both halves of a Conjurer's Calling, however, so maybe he's just praying that there isn't another one. That's a pretty a valid line of play to be considering.
Yeah, absolutely. Mirror Image, Ray of Frost.
Wow, that's a good card.
Oh, that is really good, especially when it costs free mana and you have a Stargazer Luna. That might be the game ender right there. That is a powerful turn.
Look at what Saiyan could do next turn. He's got Frost Nova, Sea Giant, and a Conjurer's Calling.
I'm looking at the Archmage. I'm caster visioning now. That Archmage is going unchecked.
We're both guilty.
We're both guilty. But I'm going to say you're more guilty, because you said you'd break 1,000 arms first. For me, I'm like, big deal. They had a Mountain Giant.
You got me there, buddy.
This is a tough turn, though. Like, I cannot stress how difficult this turn is in totality.
It was just so much stuff to spend your mana on over these turns.
Yeah.
And even holding back the Ray of Frost.
So here is another very important scenario, I think, for Saiyan, where, again, he wants to be not the first player using Frost Nova.
Yes.
So how does he get around that? Step one, look for another Frost Nova.
It's got to be another magic trick there, and the other ones were just not cutting it.
And so the mana expenditure here says that I believe that he cannot play the other magic trick, or he won't be able to fit everything in. So now the play he's looking at is Conjurer's Calling with a Sea Giant.
Well, no, he can fit it in, because Sea Giant would go down to 1 mana with a 0 mana after Conjurer's Calling.
Well, that means he's committed to not freezing at all this turn, which is quite surprising to me.
Sorry, you were thinking about fitting in the freeze. I don't think he has to freeze on this turn,
Yeah,
right?
it's true. I mean, he can't just Hero Power the Giant, and he finds another freeze. All right, so now...
Those are good cards.
Saving the freeze is so important, because it just puts all that pressure back on the Hunterace to have just as good of a turn as he had, and not use his own freeze.
I like this.
It's a constant dance back and forth where you're like, you use the freeze first. No, you use the freeze first. It's a weird game of chicken.
Frozen chicken.
Angry chicken. These are well above that point in terms of plays, though. Sea Giant for a Hunterace! That is a huge draw!
0 mana. Draws a card.
That is ginormous!
And the Conjurer's Calling as well.
It's like a super guy!
So what's the turn here? Does he go... He can obviously go double trade. He can get 7 damage to face if he wants to.
My gosh!
Double Conjurer's Calling Frost Nova?
Did we hit the break point of the Frost Nova as offense because Saiyan has taken too much time? I mean, he's got 2 Frost Novas of his own, so no, I don't think so. But what are going to be the outcomes on the Conjurer's Calling? This is insane.
This is insane.
Would you rather have the 10 drops than the 12 drops and the potential for defense in that regard? I don't know.
I don't know either.
And I wish I knew, so that way instead of saying that it was just super tough, I could provide you with analysis and really spoil the storyline.
Well, so the thing is that hunterace loses to at the moment is lots of freeze effects, I think. But in the end, he goes with none of that and gets down the Archmage Antonidas instead.
And you hit the perfect question there. Instead, the way he loses is lots of freeze effects.
Right.
So why play to attack the board when you can freeze out the board later with Frost Nova and then kill Saiyan with fireballs in the meantime?
He was thinking the same thing, but came to the conclusion just a little bit sooner.
We could see the hands and it's difficult. He can't see the hands, and he makes it look like a breeze. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
It does, however, mean that he's not freezing the board entirely on this turn. So Saiyan has a little bit more maneuverability in terms of how he wants to fight back against what hunterace is doing.
It's the life totals. This is a perfect setup from hunterace.
Yeah.
He just knows that Saiyan can't push through enough damage to kill him. If he kills the Archmage Antonidas, that's too late. He has to gain life somehow.
He does have Ziliax in the deck.
But the only way to gain enough life is literally to get a mech from a Conjurer's Calling and attach Ziliax. So Saiyan would have to have Ziliax, he'd have to have Conjurer's Calling, and he'd have to get Mechathune from that Sea Giant. No way.
Yeah. Spellbender does not divert spells being cast on the face, only on minions.
That Sorcerer's Apprentice is still alive, mind you. Not anymore. And Saiyan has to think about this and go, if I attack face, do the fireballs matter anymore? Can I kill my opponent if I attack face? The answer is not if they have a freeze, but so be it.
Oh man, if he didn't have the freeze though, he might actually be able to do it.
If hunterace didn't have a freeze.
You always go face. You always go face.
Yeah. Smart call from Saiyan, but hunterace got the better of him in this game.
He knows there are enough fireballs to close things out anyway.
Hunterace
Hunterace now just wondering, how do I win if it's counterspell? To which the answer is...
Sorcerer's Apprentice, launch a fireball. You see that it's not a counterspell, get Frost Nova.
Does that potentially lose to Ziliax at that point if you're using one of the fireballs?
It does potentially lose Ziliax, but it also means that Saiyan needs to freeze out your board because you have a big counterattack coming.
He had the perfect
Oh, wait, the
answer
Archmage is still alive.
Yes. Yeah. Okay,
Nah.
I guess so.
Easy game.
Yeah.
Once you got to this point anyway. Getting to this point, not so easy.
This game was so close, man.
I can't believe he's done this.
I honestly thought that Saiyan might be pulling this one back. With the two freezes.
I thought so as well. I really thought that Saiyan was going to have the advantage, and that's why Archmage has been so important in this deck.
If hunterace hadn't played that and instead gone with the line we were looking at Conjurer's Calling, he would have just been frozen out of the game.
Beautiful.
Lovely play.
That's just good Hearthstone.
Yeah.
You love to see that. Game 3 coming up.
And there it is. Again, hunterace showing his signature strength in Hearthstone. He knew what he was weak to. He knew what would win him that game. He moved towards that as quick as he could, and he won because of it.
And did so with great confidence as well. And the patience to hold on to freezes until the absolute paramount moment. And I'm going to talk a little bit here about the preparation for this match, and the two of them working together clearly with identical lists across. We asked the players ahead of time to let us know what deck they're swapping to so that we can deliver that on broadcast. And Saiyan kind of chuckled and went, primary all 3 games. It's very rare that you get the answer ahead of time of what they're going to queue in games 2 and game 3.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, he has enough respect for hunterace to know that there's no way they ever switch to anything else.
That to me has been one of the coolest things from Saiyan over the years, is watching him progress and truly become the elite of the elite in the game. He's in Grandmasters for Americas now. This is like the first regional crossover that we're going to see for Grandmasters for some time. Is at Masters Tours. And justsaiyan has developed such a wonderful sense of self-reflection and humbleness and recognition of where other players are and where his opponents are. And I think that helps him not only make strong plays against particular styles of opponents, but also at the same time to keep a light heart about important matches like this one, where it's important you win or lose. It's going to affect you in some way, but to be able to mitigate that as much as possible by recognizing, hey, this is probably one of the toughest opponents I'm going to face all tournament. I think that helps keep a focus to some degree, and I would say a couple years ago that Saiyan didn't necessarily have that skill set built out.
I agree. I think hunterace was coming on a similar journey, but for slightly different reasons, where the reason he would have suffered in this kind of situation beforehand was nerves, quite frankly. When he was starting out playing on the big stage, hunterace did get very nervous because he was still trying to prove himself, working his way up. He's very young compared to a lot of the other players that we have here, and was not especially well known. But because of his obviously unbelievably impressive HCT year, finishing off with the grand title, the Hearthstone World Champion, he's really made himself a lot more comfortable, I think, on the stage. And like you said, similar to Saiyan, has improved drastically because of that.
I'm even going to elaborate on that a little bit, too, as we're waiting for game number 3. We can get into it, as soon as the players are going to be ready for it. At the Hearthstone Global Games, where, Team Norway made that top 4.
Yeah.
The very first thing hunterace says, he comes over to me, he's like, "Oh man, we messed up that game," and he just starts going on about analysis. And I was like, "Man, you've been dominant all year. You just got 3rd place at an international global team tournament." I was like, I get the criticism, but be proud of yourself right now, man. You're at BlizzCon, have a good time.
I agree.
And right as he says that, he goes, "No, it's got to be so disappointing for people who are rooting for me that we didn't play as." Literally, as he's saying it, someone walks up and goes, "hunterace! Oh my gosh, it's so cool to see you, man! Congratulations, you got 3rd place. That's so good." And just the look on his face where he's like, "I want to criticize myself, but you know what? I'm just going to enjoy it."
I'm glad that he had that, because literally, without fail, after every single Grandmasters match, he will send me a wall of text as to why he messed up everything he did wrong.
Game number 3 underway, and Saiyan on the coin yet again. The coin in this matchup is a major deal. It's more just important in general for Mage to get coin because of excess cards in hand.
Yep.
Mountain Giant, big deal. But the fact that hunterace starts with fewer cards in hand and that Saiyan has more cards in hand, that's the first objective. How does hunterace get aggressive in this spot and try to take advantage of that fact?
I'm not sure. I think, as we saw from Saiyan in the first game, in that last game when he was on the play rather than on the coin, we were looking at Sorcerer's Apprentice into Banana Buffoon was the main way he was looking to go for that, which obviously hunterace shut down and took a pretty easy win. I suppose he's going to be looking for Banana Buffoon buffing up and going for a big Mana Cyclone now that the Elemental Evocation has been picked up as well. But Saiyan on his own side has a reasonable hand as well that also abuses the mana cheat that Sorcerer's Apprentice throws down.
Well, I'm quite surprised that he doesn't go for the Apprentice in this spot. hunterace so often is going to be looking to exactly Banana Buffoon or Arcane Intellect that turn.
True.
And so, akin to what hunterace did in game number 2, where he fought back on board, Saiyan's aggressive play shut down hunterace's ability to get aggressive in his own right. And so for Saiyan there, he's obviously trying to take major advantage of his own Mountain Giant, but I'm curious if he could have played a different role this game, because his hand is good, but I wouldn't say it's like, pure awesome sauce at this point. I think he's got some work to do here.
And I think maybe because of that, he's come to the same conclusion, but it's the same assessment, but a different conclusion as to what he should do about that, which is to say, if he went for the Sorcerer's Apprentice here, he doesn't have Banana Buffoon, he doesn't have that many spells that he can throw down in order to combo with the Mana Cyclone. So maybe keep the cards in hand, and therefore the absurdly uber powerful Wonder Source thing you were talking about that he can do comes in the form of Mountain Giant.
Yeah. So I'm gonna see if I can revisit this turn later, but what I had in mind for Saiyan particularly was Sorcerer's Apprentice that turn. If hunterace plays a minion there or it goes unchecked, you end up with Ray of Frost, Coin, and Mana Cyclone in that spot. So it's only 3 spells, but you get to keep your hand full for the Mountain Giant, but you get to add pressure as well. And so the difference is Saiyan has cards in hand, which means flexibility later on, and it means a Mountain Giant potentially a little bit earlier. So that's the question, is what is that trade-off worth and what does it cost him? And now we're going to find out.
Yes, I fully see your point. In the perfect scenario, it works out very nicely for him. But if we look at his hand as it was on that turn, before Stargazer Luna was picked up, if the Sorcerer's Apprentice is dealt with, he's in a miserable spot.
That's a very true story.
It would have disrupted hunterace's turn from going for the Banana Buffoon or Arcane Intellect, but his Mountain Giant would have been a turn further off, and he would have gained nothing for having the Apprentice down.
And he plays the Giant here. This is really interesting, because to hunterace, obviously, this threatens Conjurer's Calling. So he has to respond. Well, he responds with bananas that actually, if he wants to directly trade combat, which I assume he's going to, it puts Saiyan in a pretty interesting position where the Twilight Drake is low on health, and he's going to try to take advantage of that and load up with the Mana Cyclone. So he's actually kind of looking back to that early turn. He could have made an aggressive push, but Saiyan is finding in my opinion here, an alternate use of Mountain Giant, which is trying to manipulate resources from hunterace and then capitalize on that afterwards so that it costs hunterace something in the meantime.
I think that's right. I think it's a good recognition on both sides here of finding a way to deal with the Drake, which could get through a lot of damage by letting it trade with the Giant, and also realizing what is good about his own hand here, as Saiyan's hand is not one that synergizes with having a Giant in play.
Yeah.
There's no Khadgar, there's no Conjurer's Calling. He has a hand that does very well with your opponent has a bunch of small minions, and so you respond to that with a big Sorcerer's Apprentice Mana Cyclone turn.
Wow, and hunterace, I think, is really gotten, you know, perhaps a big edge here, but Saiyan's hand is big, you know, just huge in
This is
terms
the
of
turn.
in terms of value. But hunterace, he's got Khadgar in unexpected results. Like, that's a lot of stuff on board.
That is a lot of stuff. I tried making this deck as soon as the Rise of the Mechs came out.
I was just about to tell this story about Gallon doing this, where he was like, oh, he's like, it's the truth, it's the best. And I go, I'm not so sure about that. He goes, well, I'm not either, honestly. But if it is,
Spoiler alert, it's terrible. It's really bad.
I'm not going to say terrible, but it's not the truth.
Okay.
This turn might be, though.
Yeah, man, how many spells does he get here? He's having to play it early because he would have too many spells in hand if he didn't throw down the Cyclone now.
So he doesn't necessarily want to use the other Ray of Frost. He doesn't necessarily want to use the banana, but instead he's going to fully commit, say, I'm going to use the banana this turn and then fill my hand up afterwards.
Yep.
And I think that this is wise. Oh, excuse me, it does not fill his hand up all the way.
Yeah, he could have dumped out cards anyway. Like, he's perfectly able to take this turn nice and easy, pulling things back pretty gorgeously and getting himself a pretty nice suite of spells here with a 4-mana Luna's Pocket Galaxy. If 5 wasn't good enough already, that's admirable.
Yeah, it's... Luna's probably just received the biggest buff, I think, on its own right. I think that it was not the most impactful of the buffs, but 2 mana... I mean, Mulch Muncher didn't even get 2 mana off. My goodness.
It's just become good now.
For hunterace, you know, again, you're at a disadvantage when you don't have coin in the matchup. So in this spot, the fact that I think he's fought to a reasonable position, to me, is already quite impressive. But if he manages to get past this push that Saiyan had, especially with as good of an outcome on the Mana Cyclone he's had, I'll just be plumb surprised.
I mean, just look at the situation that Hunterace is in, where the exact style that he pioneered with this mage deck of playing out your minions nice and wide, not going all two all in on the big minions.
Oh,
he's suffering at the hands of it from justsaiyan.
And hunterace, that's the stare of I'm in trouble. I need to figure out something good.
Was that? Was that even the best play on that turn? Was double Conjurer's Calling to go wide on the board?
I think the Luna's is massively threatening, and it's the threat of that power, I think, that puts hunterace in a different position. So kind of akin to how justsaiyan followed up with the Mana Cyclone to take advantage of what hunterace had. The Luna's Pocket Galaxy threat of power, I feel like, is the power here. hunterace is under the gun to start being the aggressor, and right now he's not the aggressor.
I guess with having Luna in hand specifically, it allows it allows justsaiyan to really nicely chain through all those cost minions now, so we will be able to pull onto the board very effectively.
Just perspective as well. I mean, think about hunterace and all the nightmare draws he's picturing on Saiyan's side now. I don't think he has the freedom to just wait around anymore. I think he's got to get something done.
I think you're right. And how does he do that with no Conjurer's Calling in hand?
Yeah, now you understand where I think his wince and his fear sat on that turn. It's not pretty.
Giant and then results. Going for the play that no mage in a mage mirror ever wants to make, of Khadgar into mirror images. We have seen time and again players falling at this style of play in Grandmasters, but I think for hunterace here, he's realizing something has to go pretty spectacularly well for him, and this may just be it.
Yeah, I think with the Ray of Frosts, he does have a little bit more flexibility on like clearing his own board in that position. That's
true.
And then also, if Saiyan is going to try to put together a big chain here to take advantage of this, it requires a lot of things to go right for him.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to go right. It's not necessarily going to go wrong, but it does, I think, put a little bit more pressure on justsaiyan to be more clever with his resources. It's not a simple, straightforward game plan right now.
Yeah.
but this is a dangerous turn for hunterace, where if you occupy too much of your board space, Conjurers calling wars become a liability to you at that point. Even if you have the initiative and you're technically getting the better of it, your board space is gone.
And another one of these really cool turns coming in from Saiyan with loads of spells being dumped down onto the board. A 1-mana 4/10 Twilight Drake to boot as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's absolutely right in clearing off the mirror images here. While we have seen many times leaving them up is the smart way to go about it. Ooh. For Saiyan here, I think because he has a bunch of small minions, you got to clear him off to get in that chip damage.
So Luna is a very interesting draw.
Ooh.
Yeah, Toxicologist, nothing. The Crystal Smith Kangor does offer extra life, though. It's pretty unusual you have that opportunity. And now it's just stuff.
Just stuff.
Sometimes you just need some good old stuff in play.
It's interesting how the tables have now been flipped on Saiyan, where he was the one with a whole bunch of small minions in play, getting in the chip damage and controlling the board. Now hunterace seems to be in that position.
I think these tables are going to turn, pretty quick.
I agree.
However, there's possibilities here,
yeah.
And possibilities are what you're looking for when you're behind in these situations.
Like hunterace has a lot of damage on board. He has 2 Frost Novas. Maybe from where he's sitting, he thinks he can pray that Saiyan has a very unreactive hand, and he can just push for lethal.
That is unfortunately not the case.
That is definitely not the case.
Let's see what else you got up the sleeve.
Oh yeah, that works nicely with Luna.
Shaking his head for hunterace. Oh, and rightfully so. Another wins. It pains me to see his wins even. I feel for him.
This hurts. This one hurts, Admirable.
If you're going to lose, though, why not lose to one of the other elite players in the world with the exact list of 30 cards that you're playing? Like,
it's true.
That's about as good as it's going to get in terms of taking a loss, I think.
Yeah, and we'd be saying this either way, right? Like, I mean, it's hunterace and just saying either player taking a loss is going to feel miserable.
Well, mind you, Derek, I have defected to European region casting, so if hunterace had won this one, I would have been talking strictly about European dominance as my storyline.
You're learning. You're finally learning.
If he could find a way to this one, again, I'll just be darn impressed. Oh, Derek's cooking up something. I can see it.
I'm thinking, like, Conjurer's Calling. Like, if he goes double Conjurer's Calling, Frost Nova, no.
There's a world.
There's a world. I mean, he's used the real thing that's holding hunterace back here is he's already used Khadgar. And therefore, he can't even go for one of the really powerful turns that he's looking to go for with a super wide board play and then Frost Nova as well. I don't know.
It definitely starts with that.
Yeah, it's just the fact that he's so behind on resources as well as on board.
I'm not necessarily convinced that he's behind on resources. I think that the resource battle is fairly close to even. And I was just about to mention this. One of the Frost Novas was created, and Luna's in play now. Well, okay, I wasn't anticipating that draw, so that changes a lot of it.
That does change a lot.
With 3 Frost Novas, you are in really good shape oftentimes. So, I'm not convinced that, oh my goodness.
Okay.
He may have found a way.
Okay. This is a hand from hunterace. This is the kind of thing he needs to be doing to pull it back.
Freeze advantage majorly in hunterace's advantage. And again, that's what so many of the late game positions are about. It's being able to freeze your opponent's board, shut down the attacks until you get your one big one.
And so from that position, he just needs to find a way to get as much damage on board to close it out quickly as he possibly can.
And that's easily set up. Trades.
That's Conjurer's Calling.
Conjurer's Calling.
Yep.
More freezes. He honestly might have this one. We still got a ways to go, but it's not impossible anymore.
Both players massively respecting the power of Luna, as we see here, with a lot of mana being invested for Saiyan here just to clear it off on the other side, which I think is wise.
Yeah. I think you want to leave the Cyclone up, and you want to leave this Kangor's stranded as long as you can.
Whoa. Two Kona Colds as well is really not all too bad.
So not magic tricking there. They actually lost out on a card. I'm curious what the extra mana could have represented in terms of expenditure for Saiyan. I mean, he should just have an extra card in hand, right? Perhaps he doesn't know what he wants to magic trick for yet.
Yeah, unless he's afraid of a research project coming down from hunterace, I think that was probably a missed mana there.
That's fairly a reasonable assumption. I think that Saiyan has plenty of important cards in the deck,
yes,
so
I agree.
Having some mitigation to research project, and what does one extra random spell mean, I guess is the thought. He's trying to battle with the hand he's currently got. Now that being said, he has seen the second freeze now from hunterace, which means that if anything else is going to happen, it has to be randomly generated cards, I believe.
And now we're entering into the portion of the game where not only freezes will be very important, but the battle of the secrets, I imagine, will also be very crucial, as a Counterspell and Spellbender are both pretty premium secrets in this matchup for both players.
Yeah, hunteraces, I think, are a little bit more powerful overall.
I agree.
But, you know, Saiyan does have a very different angle where it's Spellbender very punishing to the situation. Vaporize very punishing if you can isolate a giant with it. On hunterace's side, they're very punishing if you play into them, not necessarily on their own.
Yeah.
Kona Cold's doing the job for now. I would imagine you're pretty interested in getting a Sea Giant down here.
Oh, he doesn't have board space,
I
right?
could ping his own 2-1. Ping your own 2-1 versus ping opponent 2-1. I like getting an 8-8. Super guy. Or no giant.
He likes just pinging for board space.
But it gives him an opportunity. Because now Conjurer's Calling will be an option.
He could set up more taunts.
Wow. Could set up more taunts. Or, if the situation calls for it, perhaps then play the Sea Giant and look for a counter freeze attack.
Could get Ziliax off the top as well.
You know, how likely is it that Sea Giant matters this turn? Honestly, fairly little. Hunterace has a high priority of freezing anyway. So if he uses his last freeze, and then you get a kicker effect of, oh, by the way, there's an 8-8 on my counter freeze,
yep,
that's something Hunterace may have not accounted for.
That's true. A very interesting play, either way.
So why would he ping his own minion then if he didn't have a Sea Giant? Conjurer's Calling exactly, I think, is the thought.
Sorry, I don't... Well, he'd ping it anyway just because he wants to clear up board space, right? For
I just mean
Ziliax
from Hunterace's perspective.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I understand that.
It's interesting.
I think for Saiyan, it's probably just realizing this 2-1 basically does nothing anyway, and being locked out of playing minions is just generally bad.
For Saiyan's perspective, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
From Hunterace's perspective, why does he interpret it, and how?
And that's what we've been talking about, the over-computation that Hunterace can run into. Maybe he starts running circles around himself, trying to figure out what it could possibly be that Saiyan is pinging his own minion for. As another freeze effect comes down for Hunterace, and another one is still available on the following turn.
Saiyan has his own freeze this turn,
yeah,
but time is running out. And he has no way to actually check the mirror entity profitably in this spot. Just going to give away a Sea Giant if it's mirror entity.
It's such a tough spot because he needs to be afraid of Counterspell. And if it's Counterspell, he obviously wants the mirror entity, the mirror image to be countered. But if it's not Counterspell, he really doesn't want there to be 2 mirror images in play.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about that exact situation because he just drew a second Conjurer's Calling.
Okay.
I was just about to mention, can he throw away a Conjurer's Calling? And he does. And perhaps his thought process there is, if it doesn't counter the Conjurer's Calling, great, I'm going to do that anyway.
I guess you're right.
Hunterace draws another Conjurer's Calling. Why not? This game's insane.
So at this point, so he has another freeze. At this point, he has to pretend. He has to just pray that Saiyan only has 1 freeze left.
He might have to, yeah. This is not good news.
And so then he would just go Blizzard, Conjurer's Calling the Grave Horror in order to get the most stats on board as possible.
Wants to check the secret first. It's a freshly played one.
Okay.
So the same fear that Saiyan had. Now gone for Hunterace. Another counterspell.
3 secrets available here.
So I guess that's the question, is Counterspell actually better than Ice Barrier? And I think it's not, because Ice Barrier is like a pseudo freeze in this situation.
Right. It might just buy him that 1 extra turn.
Yeah, I think it's superior to Vaporize in totality. Saiyan's often just going to attack with the smallest minion first. So I think the Vaporize is weaker than the Ice Barrier overall.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for 1 counter-attack opportunity at this point. It's going to end.
I fully agree. I would never have picked the Vaporize there. As now for Saiyan, the freeze has pretty much run out outside of a Frostbolt. His saving grace, however, appears to be just the amount of stuff that he can throw on board here.
Yeah, there's times that just stuff is good enough. Nice check on the mirror entity as well.
There's also times where it just isn't good enough as well.
That's also true. You know, Conjurer's Calling isn't always going to produce a taunt minion.
It's so close here, Nathan.
Let's get that one in play. Let's get the 10s. He wants to try to end.
He's going to be pushing for lethal next turn.
My goodness.
And Deathwing helps with that a fair bit. And it's just not lethal for Hunterace. Even with the
draw for lethal?
I mean, I'm looking at it. If he goes Conjurer's Calling on a Grave Horror and hits a Mountain Giant.
Oh, you mean on an opposing one?
Yes, yeah, sorry. On one of Saiyan's Grave Horrors to try and get it out the way. But I think even then, with one of the Giants being frozen, there's just no chance for lethal here.
Saiyan is sweating that turn. He didn't get the ping in time. He didn't know where he wanted to send it. The last minute decided face.
It's obviously bad, but it shouldn't be too crucial.
Yeah, I don't think that's the relevant factor. Now, if it is the relevant factor, I'm gonna eat my words on that. But here it's finally the freezes have worn away.
Yeah.
Jaina's out of mana. It's on cooldown.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Hunter is clearly eyeing Conjurer's Calling in some capacity this turn.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's just trying to survive is his biggest concern here, which I guess if he gets a couple of Grave Horrors, he can maybe be in a situation where he survives for a turn or two, but then he's just getting value traded to Kingdom Come.
It's 34 damage on Saiyan's side of the board right now.
Wow.
So Hunterace has to trade something, I think, with his hand remaining, or he has to expend the remaining freezes. So Conjurer's Calling, he knows what he's going to get into that situation. Oh, my. Ooh, he barely got that off.
Ooh.
Did he not get it off?
Ooh.
Oh, I was about to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the real wins from him is just no taunts coming down at all.
Oh, that's what it is. That's definitely what it is. But
he's not dead, though.
No, he's not under the threat of counter-lethal.
So does Saiyan have to trade? Like, they're both just completely running out of stuff at this point, but they have so much in play.
So Saiyan definitely has one strong trade lined up. Banana Buffoon into 8-2.
Yeah.
Hunterace is out of cards. 3-1 not a priority.
And then mirror image everything face.
Well, the Crystal Smith Kangor is a little kicker in this one.
Yeah.
It's just 2 extra health every time it pokes something.
Could make a difference. Going to bring your opponent down to 14, though.
I mean,
if they heal for 2, you still hit them for 16.
The thing I'm looking at for Saiyan right now is what happens if he just trades both Giants? He's got 12-12 in play, and Hunterace has got 1 card left.
And he has a Luna's Pocket Galaxy active. Maybe he just wins.
I'm curious about that. I really don't know. That to me is a situation that like Kalento or Purple could answer.
Yeah.
Purple would probably just shit-face in this spot, but I think Kalento would have this calculated. Can I just kill all the minions? I think that's, to me, one of the biggest strengths I've seen from him is recognizing if I just kill stuff, I can't lose. And Saiyan, I think, just America's players in general, I think, are much more on the aggressive side in terms of where to favor how to make those attacks. I think if Saiyan attacks minions in this spot, there's weird worlds of possibilities it doesn't end well.
Yep.
If he ships face, though, wow, he's got to have something.
Like you said, Kalento would be much more the player, I think, to just value trade or to trade all your opponent's stuff away until
to recognize if
nothing
it's
left.
correct. Yeah. I'm not convinced it's correct. It's a question on my head, and that certainly is some pretty strong pickups for Hunterace.
Yeah, one good, one bad.
Wow, I'll tell you what, those trades suddenly look a lot different. Those trades all of a sudden look to me like they would have been massively effective.
But there's still the Vaporize as well for Saiyan here, which cannot be dealt. Well, he'd have to trade an 8-8 into a 0-2 here.
Oh, the Sorcerer's Prince is already attacked.
It's already attacked. In order to get the Crystal Smith Kangor face, can he make the read?
I mean, what does it cost you? Can he afford to make
everything?
Can he afford to make the read? That's my question.
He saw it. Oh, these players, man.
I'll tell you what, though, his position's not good.
It's not great. He's obviously alive, and Saiyan has to, I think, give respect to either to either vaporize or the ice barrier.
You start with Conjurer's Calling. You see it successful. Do whatever you want after that.
On what?
Well, I want more 10 drops.
That seems
10
fair.
to 10 is frozen, and it's usually bigger.
Yeah. I mean, I was wondering if you ever go for taunts to protect you because they can't be value traded.
I think that's what he's thinking, is if I go face and then I Conjurer's Calling, can I get defense and lock him out?
Yeah.
He knows that there's a freeze left, so he knows that Hunterace has some time. Gets the word it's ice barrier.
Because he's thinking, I think, like, if he doesn't go for the taunts and Saiyan goes all face and generates a freeze, then maybe that's his way back into the game.
Wow.
Whereas this pretty much just locks Hunterace out of the game.
True story. I mean, it's a follow-up to the exact same effect last turn. If you trade your minions down, there's a great possibility you just end up with nothing.
Yep.
Or a weird, wacky situation where Hunterace and Archmage Antonidas, which is buried deep into the deck, can't get the job done.
And with a mirror image and a freeze on this turn, Hunterace can stay alive. Just.
How does he win from there, though? There's no card draw left.
He does not win from there, is the answer.
Got to trade both Giants. You got to freeze out the Deathwing. You play Sea Giant. You hope.
The crucial turns have come and gone already, I think, for these players. And it was some pretty exciting stuff. Hunterace could have been in an even worse position if he hadn't gone for the Crystal Smith Kangor to take out the Vaporize as well.
It's just the importance of Archmage Antonidas, I think, is
That's
very
true.
actively demonstrated in this game, where if either player had that in those late freeze scenarios, I think they would have very handedly won the game.
Hunterace has no choice here. He has to freeze to stay alive. And then, I don't know, maybe he's looking at Saiyan plays a 2-drop, he top decks Conjurer's Calling, and he can make a Doomsayer. Yeah.
Tell me, how much more do you need at this point? All right. Is there a Mana Cyclone left? I don't think there is. And this time, the Wizard arrived late.
After such a grueling Mage Mirror here, two players who prepped together, coming with identical 90 for 90 card deck lists here, and it does end up with Saiyan taking the victory. What a series.
Yeah, you're going to bring 40 total cards. You have a primary deck you have to queue every single game, and then your second and third deck can be up to 5 cards different.
Yes.
You can use any one you want in games number 2 and 3. You don't have to tell which one your opponent you're using, but with the way that these were built and the way that they had prepared, it was very clear it was primary through and through. And I think in that one, Hunterace just, he was able to close out a game with Archmage Antonidas in a timely fashion. And in game number 3, the story, I think, is justsaiyan favoring aggression in that spot. And I think he had a strong pan out with trading Giants, and then having the Deathwing isolated just be a big threat. But I think that yielded a lower win rate in the grand scheme of things, where an Archmage Antonidas could very suddenly turn that around.
Yeah, it was a really interesting third game there, where it was the Hunterace with the first Giant that came down and a response from justsaiyan. But with the inability to value trade for Hunterace, it just couldn't quite come together in the right way. And then with the turn, as you said, with the Luna's Pocket Galaxy coming down on turn 6, at that point, it was just way too much tempo for Hunterace to pull back.
That was the thing is, Kona Cold, oftentimes I found it just doesn't slot very efficiently with mana. So when you get those freeze effects from Mana Cyclones, I'm just like, I'm having turns, I'm like 1 mana off of doing my thing. Luna's Pocket Galaxy on that turn freed all of that up. Those Kona Colds looked beautiful afterwards.
They really did. And all the freeze effects on Hunterace's side, unfortunately, could not make any of the difference in the world. But I'm really glad that we got to see from those two players such a variety of styles of play. just within that one best of 3 series, we saw justsaiyan going with the Mana Cyclone, Banana Buffoon, Sandbinder, just curving out with his small minions in some of the games. We also saw the kind of destruction of just Mountain Giant. Conjurer's Calling as well. It's a very diverse deck in terms of how you can play it, and that was a real masterclass from both of those players.
Full breadth of the matchup, and that's what I like to see on that one. So we got to go to a quick break as we're amidst round number 4 right now, but we're playing 7 rounds of Swiss today. justsaiyan takes out hunterace by a score of 2-1, moves up to 4-0 match record. hunterace just down to 3-1 match record. So, you know, you can't be perfect every single time, I guess. Quick break, and then we're coming back. More Hearthstone after this.